Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is recmebook&stuff. Today I'm going to tell you about the books I read in May. I actually made a mistake. This is the second half of May. The first half of May was Springathon and I did a whole TBR and separate wrap-up for that, which I will link down below. The second half of May I didn't read as much as I wanted to, as I mentioned, because I temporarily moved back with my dad. That said, I did like every single thing I read, so that's crazy. We are 2 out of 2. We're doing great. Let's begin. First, I finally got to Perfume by Patrick Süskind. This is subtitled The Story of a Murderer, and I adored this so much. It was fantastic. It is about this dude who is born with the greatest nose. Whatever he smells, he remembers, but he lacks a scent himself, and that makes him sort of an outcast in society because it's something so unnatural. He starts working as a perfume maker, but then begins to resent his own lack of scent, and this has had an impact in his life ever since he was a young child. So what the book is looking at is notions of humanity, what makes us human, also ideas of luxury and excess through smell, and also ideas of human nature. This is set in Paris, 1700s, by the way. It is a very gothic novel, actually, and it asks questions about humanity and like character, like are we born evil or are we made evil? And it was so eerie and not as gory as I expected. I expected it to be much more, I don't know, just disgusting. And of course it has like some gruesome parts, but it's never gratuitous. It's just so gothic and eerie and wonderful. I'm obsessed with this. I really want to reread it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward now to the film and the TV show. I'm curious though, because a lot of it is in description and in subjectivity, and the way the narrator operates is so interesting because it's omniscient, but the way it uses flash forward and the way it delves in different subjectivities, it's so well done. I really loved it. I was obsessed with it. I read it in like 2 days. Yeah, I really recommend it. Then I did get to the entirety of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. This is like a collected works volume. It's not like only The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And I really enjoyed it. Watson as a narrator, everyone says this, but it's true. It's so interesting. It's great to see Holmes through his eyes and also get a sense of the relationship they have and their mutual admiration. There was this story where Holmes says, your reporting is so emotional and it doesn't delve enough into like the logic of it, which is true. But at the same time, that's what makes Sherlock Holmes so likable despite his unrelatability. And yeah, the stories, I liked some more than others. That's always the case. But the book starts with a scandal in Bohemia, which is a story that introduces the woman. So I was so happy. Also, of course you can read them in any order, but there is a bit of, it's not chronologically structured, but Watson is very much consciously organizing the stories, and he does mention like in the past or when we did this. So it's pretty much serialized in that way. And I enjoyed that actually, even if I haven't read everything else. I like that the idea of this being something that develops through time and that time is not ignored in the series, if that makes any sense. And I did get to The Optic Nerve by María Gainza. This is an edition in Spanish. That's why it looks different. I really love this. So let's talk about genre for a bit. This is sold as an experimental novel, and I understand why, because when you call something a novel, it is a lot more likely that people will pick it up than if you call it anything else. But this is not a novel. And I feel like if you pick it up expecting that, you will not like this. I would call it fictional or autofictional essays, because that's what it feels like you're reading. A collection of essays on art and life and interpersonal relationships, and all of those are buzzwords for me. I really enjoyed how this was written. I really enjoyed the insights, and also it was really cool to read something that hits so close to home. I love Buenos Aires. Actually, for a long time I went there every single year, and now it's not that often, but I still go there every chance I get, basically. I've seen it change through the years. Such a lovely place, and it is like very art conscious. There are a lot of great artists, writers and painters that come from there, musicians too, reading a book in a format that I love so much. You know, I love my existential musings on art and life set in a city I love so much. It was just amazing. I also really like the writing style. I don't know if the translation does it justice, but I really liked it in Spanish. It was very like straightforward, but it would have these moments of insight. Love that. So if you have any suggestions like this, please keep them coming. Not that I haven't said a lot already, but I did write a quick review for this in my blog, so you can check that out. Let's move on to a book that wasn't on my TBR. And this is actually the book that I switched with The End of Eddie. And it's The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark. So I have only read Memento Mori. I don't know what it was, but I didn't really like that. I think it was the moment I was just stressed out when I read it. I couldn't focus on it properly, and I can see that because there is much that it is left unsaid here, and so you need to like pick up the cues. So yeah, I will try that again. But after this, I want to read everything Muriel Spark has ever written because this was so good and so interesting. So this is about a bunch of schoolgirls who have a teacher who is knowingly a spinster, but by choice. And she says that she's in her prime and that she wants to dedicate this prime to her girls. But she also does have a relationship and does fall in love, and that is very messy. So it's a mixture of Brodie's prime and downfall and these girls coming of age. It's hilarious, it's dry, it's sarcastic, but it's not overly cynical, and it's also like very real, and it allows for these moments of true connection. But because it is a retrospective, you do get the sense that things have soured, and it's just it was so good. I couldn't put it down. I really, really recommend it. It was also so modern. It's please read it. Just read it. Okay, non-fiction books that were on my TBR. Japan, A Short History by Mikiso Hane. And this is like that meme, things that are exactly what are supposed to be. It's like such a straightforward and short and simple introduction to Japanese history, but it was really helpful. I especially appreciated that it took into consideration cultural aspects and like cultural influences in Japan and women's place in society. It addressed it on every single chapter. And again, it was very short, so of course if you know a lot of Japanese history, this is not the book for you. But if you're looking for a good introduction, this is it. And it's written in a very straightforward way. I've been reading a lot of creative nonfiction lately, so it was kind of nice actually to revisit a history book that is not dry, but it's also very to the point and very organized and well structured. It made my brain happy. Then I have Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks. This is a Spanish edition, by the way, but it looks very similar to the edition in English. The revised edition has this picture as well. I really appreciated this, although it was not what I was expecting. This, I thought it was going to be much more of a coherent narrative of music and the brain. And like his other book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, it's episodic. It's like very different narratives, which I think might be all of his books. You know, I love Oliver Sacks, but I have not read a lot of his books, and I've actually read more of his essays, so I didn't know that most of his books, if not all of them, have this format. So once I got over that, I could really enjoy it because it is super interesting. It is very surface level, but it's just fun to see all the ways your brain can be messed up and improved or ruined. It was interesting. It was like a bunch of weird things that can happen with your brain and your personality and how it relates to music. I also liked that the revised edition was really revised and include responses to the original publication and updates to the cases. So if you're interested in particular in neurological and cognitive disorders related to music and musical abilities and music perception, then this is a book for you. If you want a broader narrative, there is another book that actually Oliver Sacks cites here as like an inspiration. I'm going to put it here because I forgot the name, but it's supposed to be great, so I will try to hunt it down and read it soon. A book that I read on ebook format that was on my TBR was Stradivari's Genius by Toby Faber. Here's the thing. Toby Faber to me is like that fast food, comfort food that is not absolutely trashy, but it's also not gourmet. That's a weird analogy. I think he's very passionate about what he writes, and he is very knowledgeable, and he includes a lot of information, but he's very messy, and there is something unpolished about his style that I don't like, but I also like everything else. So I do want to read other books. He has one on Faber JX, for example, that promises to be super interesting. So yeah, this is my second Toby Faber this year and ever, but like I read both this year. Don't think this is a Stradivari biography, because it is not. Oh, by the way, this is the thing that I was supposed to mention at the beginning. Stradivari was the most important violin maker in the entire history. Currently, there are a lot of surviving Strats. They are ridiculously expensive, and some of the most famous violin soloists in the world own them. There are some cellos that survive, and the most famous one is now in the hands of Yo-Yo Ma. You get the idea. He was very important, although his reputation fluctuated. Now he's considered to be the greatest violin maker of all time. So the book follows 5 violins and the cello, or 4 violins and the cello. It attempts to track them through time, and that was a smart strategy, except that I personally felt it was very confusing because it's not like each chapter is a violin, and it also gets a lot into like the people who own them. But the first section is dealing with Amatis, who was Stradivari's predecessor. I thought this book was very messy overall and very confusing, but I did enjoy it. I don't know if I'd recommend it to everyone, but you do learn a lot. So in spite of all its faults, I do think that it's written in a way that's very engaging, because you can feel Toby Faber's passion, and you do learn a lot, as I said. It's just that it's very messy, and like as a non-fiction book, I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. Next, I want to talk to you about a book called The Art of Practicing by Madelaine Bruser. This was very, very helpful, but also it's kind of a self-help book, and I don't know how I feel about that. How can I make fun of self-help books if I'm reading this? Madelaine Bruser was a professional piano performer for a long time. Now she's a teacher, and she basically lectures in this method she developed called The Art of Practicing, and this is the book that resulted from these lectures basically. It includes questions that her students have asked her, which I thought was really interesting, because some of these questions were questions that I had, and she teaches this method from beginners, me, to like professional players, so that's really good. She basically advocates for more relaxed practice techniques. She's very informed by a type of meditation, I don't remember which one, but like being present, being more open and more relaxed when you practice, stretching, treating practice as a moment of reflection and not of stress, and yeah, like how to have better mental and physical habits when practicing. As I said, it is very self-helpy, and it does that thing that drives me insane. That it's like, I was talking with a student the other day, and she asked me, what can I do? And she does that a lot, like so many different examples for one thing, and that drives me insane. But this was super helpful. It does include sections on different instruments, and she consults experts on those instruments for voice, flute, violin, percussion, I think, guitar maybe also. So it was very practical, and it was very practice oriented. It gave me a lot of advice that was helpful, and therefore I recommend it. Even though the tone is very self-helpy and it drove me insane, but you know, you can't look a kid horse in the mouth. If it's helpful, it's helpful. The Art of Practicing. And that was all. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you had a great May reading month. If you liked it, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe and tell me, have you read any or all of these books? Are you interested in them? And what have you been reading? See you next time.